My first impression of what college fraternity life might resemble came from my introduction to Ray Ackerman. It was a rush party held at the Ackerman Lakeside Estate in the middle of Oklahoma City, and I got to witness many talents that night. Literally on a stage, he was holding court on the outside patio deck, where along with many other rushees, we watched from the lawn below in utter amazement as this fraternity man put on a show, weaving the backdrop of the then newly released Star Wars movie to create an intergalactical Greek war among the fraternities at the University of Oklahoma. Using his incredible ability to tell stories in conjunction with the innate use of sounds he created with his mouth, I still remember embarrassingly asking over and over again that night, Ray, sounds, more sounds. He begrudgingly obliged us 4 or 5 more times simply because we were rushees. However, it was his role as president that I first experienced the constant from Ray Ackerman that I've continued to witness all the time I've known him. Ray was a leader who had the respect of the entire chapter. Mike Mewburn, who's here with us tonight, signed Ray as his first rushee in the spring of 1974. And Mike offered, I never once saw him allow his character or integrity to be compromised. His longtime friend and also fraternity brother, E.B. Harry, added, he was a shy kid who blossomed in SigEp. He earned respect by example in how he lived and how much he loved his fraternity and his brothers. He began serving us the moment he pledged, and he continues to serve us today. For more than 4 decades, Father Ray Ackerman has played a key role in furthering the fraternity's mission to develop value-based ideals in leaders. Since his days as chapter president at the University of Oklahoma, he exhibited a commitment to acting with honor and respecting others, values he modeled while advising countless undergraduates. After graduating, Ray spent a year working as a regional director with chapters in several states, including Florida, before joining the volunteer ranks. When Ray returned to Oklahoma in the 1980s, it's a little sidebar, he was a stand-up comic. And there was a place in Oklahoma City called Joker's, and he would perform there, and one night you might see Jay Leno, the next night, Ray Ackerman. Jerry Seinfeld, Ray Ackerman. Fortunately for the guys in Stillwater, the other 2 went and did something else, and Ray was asked to volunteer with the SigEp chapter at Oklahoma State. At that time, the chapter was undergoing some changes in its member development program, and Ray was asked to help undergraduates navigate this new terrain. He was a natural choice to take on such a role, given that he had been one of the undergraduate leaders starting his own chapter on the path to becoming one of the most philanthropic chapters in the country. Today, many consider Ray as one of the forerunners of the Balanced Man program. A decade later, he was asked once again to advise brothers going through a transitional period. This time, it was his home chapter at Oklahoma. By then, Ray had answered his life's calling and was serving as a Catholic priest. But despite his many responsibilities as a pastor, he happily made time to serve SigEp. After concluding his term as chapter counselor, Ray went on to serve several Oklahoma Beta ad hoc boards and committees and continues to serve as an at-large member of the AVC. He also serves as an unofficial chapter counselor, happily stepping in to lead, counsel, and cajole anytime he was needed. Fellow volunteers note that there have been many occasions when Ray's compassion and common sense helped them resolve difficult situations. Ray has also made a lasting impact on the national fraternity. His leadership of SigEp's Ritual and Values Task Force has yielded invaluable insight on remaining true to the ideals we were founded upon while keeping pace with cultural shifts. Since 1997, Ray has also served as our national chaplain, creating moving tributes to brothers who have passed away and presiding over the Grand Chapter Conclave Necrology. Father Ray Ackerman has served his fraternity in praiseworthy fashion for 40 plus years in a number of very prominent roles. President of Oklahoma Beta, regional director, longtime AVC member, chapter counselor, and most importantly, as our fraternity's national chaplain for the past 20 years. A very special brother wasn't able to be with us tonight, but he did want to share a few words with Brother Ackerman and everyone else here with us tonight. I'm going to read a letter. To the brothers of the Grand Chapter, from Gary Griffith, Grand President, 95 to 97, Texas Alpha Chaplain, 1967. It reads, if you will allow me a few words about my friend and brother, Ray Ackerman, I would be very appreciative. In fraternity service, there comes a point when you start taking stock of your work. As mainly undergraduates here at the Oklahoma City Carlson tonight, you are just beginning your journey of service. I am concluding mine. As your Grand President 20 years ago, I had the privilege of appointing Father Ray Ackerman, chaplain of the Grand Chapter of Sigma Phi Epsilon. I stunned many by that appointment because a Longhorn just doesn't elevate a Sooner under any circumstances. As the fraternity's longest-serving national chaplain, Father Ray has been there for us, from preparing and administering our biennial necrology to helping us through those tough times when we lose brothers, some way too young. Father Ray has been that strong hand to guide us through those difficult times. My hope is that every undergraduate chaplain would be that strong, guiding hand who sets a shining example for the brothers in his chapter and the students on his campus. Our cardinal principles of virtue, diligence, and brotherly love are the foundations on which we have built this wonderful fraternity. But written principles alone do not tell our story. It is the faithfulness to our beliefs, as disclosed by brothers like Father Ray Ackerman, that has lifted SigEp to greater heights, to a place beyond our peers. So tonight, I get the joy of knowing that in my 50 years of fraternity service, I had the good sense to make this one appointment that has been so meaningful to our fraternity. I am honored to present to you Father Ray Ackerman, National Chaplain, as recipient of Sigma Phi Epsilon's Exemplary Service Award. Fraternally, Gary Griffith. Brothers and friends, please join me in welcoming our Exemplary Service Award recipient, my priest, Brother Father Ray Ackerman.
Wow. To our Golden Heart recipients, board members, Board of Governors, countless volunteers, headquarters staff, ladies present, brothers in Sigma Phi Epsilon. Thank you very much for this honor. It's a little overwhelming. When I first learned that I was supposed to give an acceptance speech, I thought, well, for the last 26 years I've been talking to someone else upstairs, so this will be a little bit different for me. But I realized tonight there isn't much about me in what I will talk to you about. First of all, it is indeed about the Creator of all things, the giver of all good gifts. And I thank that Creator first and foremost for the gift of my parents who brought me into the world and showed me great love and direction in my early years. My own brother, who is here tonight, Mark Ackerman. 4 sisters that I grew up with and learned in my early years what it is to be a part of a great family. I went on to learn much in a Catholic grade school, went on to high school, which was a public high school, because I acted up too much doing things like sound effects. And my dad said, basically the Catholic high school was doing a kind of a flex time and a modular system. And he said, quite frankly, that is too much free time for you to get into trouble. Later on, college, and then seminary. And SigEp is again the ruler of the universe, who indeed started it all with an idea, a concept, an oath of obligation, cardinal principles of virtue, diligence, and brotherly love, a history and a legacy that stands 117 years, an oath of obligation. Again, all of this and the cardinal principles of virtue, diligence, and brotherly love, and being initiated into a way of life, became so very important to me, and no doubt to every single person in this room, and many others beyond that. It is the bond of brotherhood, and of course, the relationships that become a part of that experience. Over the past 44 years, I've been so fortunate to have known many, many great men, wonderful brothers, who have inspired me. During my undergraduate years, I came to love our fraternity through my big brother, Brooke Harry, who had a passion for both our fraternity and our chapter of Oklahoma Beta. I came to a wonderful appreciation for our SigEp initiation through the care and passion Brother Mike Mewburn put into it in his year as president. I came to appreciate what it takes, that it takes men of diversity in backgrounds and interest, and also brothers of integrity who raise the bar for each and every one of us. Those, I can say without a doubt, have been some of the most incredible years of my life. And of all the experience that I did have as an undergraduate, the one closest to my heart was when I was there for the initiation of my own brother, Ray Ackerman, into this wonderful brotherhood. And so I thank all the many brothers of my home chapter of Oklahoma Beta who accepted me, encouraged me, challenged me, laughed with me, and on a couple of occasions even cried with me. I remember learning early on that it was our undergraduates who are the lifeblood of our fraternity, yet it is in our cardinal principles exemplified by willing and active alumni that form the foundation. Brothers like Frank Heaston, Bob Holderby, Rick Ashford, Rich Wager, and many others from our own chapter, as well as those from the national chapter who are there to support us during times of transition and to help us to look in and to look for a new beginning. Brothers like John Stanley, Ken Maddox. Later on, those like Jacques Luclain, and more recently, Brian Warren, our own SigEp CEO, who worked with our own volunteers like Chip Long, Mark Gans, Andy Fugit, David Cheshire, and so many others who helped our own chapter through the years. To all of them, thank you. After graduation, I was fortunate to become a regional director for our fraternity and had the opportunity to learn from the best of brothers from across the United States. They too challenged us and stretched us. These were men of great vision who stood on the shoulders of our founders and continue to improve on their vision to make Sigma Phi Epsilon the very best fraternity in our country. To them and the multitude of alumni and undergraduates I had the pleasure of working with as I traveled the southeast part of the United States. Thank you for the memories, and thank you for the ability to change during that time on the road. I do want to take a little bit more time to talk about what it is to work with our wonderful fraternity. Of course, for most of you who are gathered here, you know and understand what it is that there is indeed a difference between headquarters staff and nationals. For some reason out there seems to be this understanding that nationals, which paints it in such a bleak way as to think that it's some large gray building with holding cells for errant brothers that does nothing but spend money from you, the undergraduates. But having traveled with my beloved fraternity and setting out in my very sweet running 1973 Plymouth dustpan, which had a slant 6, 3 on the floor, and a 255 air conditioner, which is basically 2 windows down and 55 miles an hour. And then working there, of course, what happened is that wonderful car of mine also threw a rod in Jackson, Mississippi. Of course, I didn't know what was happening. It was grrrr. I pulled into this small little place that had gasoline, and there was a guy in overalls who was putting gas in a truck, and he had about a 2.5-foot long bit of hay in his mouth. He turned around, he goes, "You better shut that thing on. That rod is going to shoot right out of the hood." So I did. Had my car towed back to Memphis, where I stayed with Brother Rick Guerreri. God rest his soul. He showed me a very generous heart. We do not lavish ourselves with the money. That money that comes from you is for each and every one of you. It serves the purpose of the National Fraternity. And to just let you know what it was like back when I was a regional director, there are others who have served that position before me. We did not have these things called smartphones. We had to set up time to call the headquarters through the operator. So we'd get the operator on the line, and that person would say, "May I help you?" And we'd say, "Yes, I'd like to place a call," and we'd give the call to the national headquarters. "I'd like to place a call to Uncle Billy." Well, as you well know, Uncle Billy was nowhere around. But we'd leave that, and the person would answer at the other end, who was part of the headquarters staff, and they'd say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Uncle Billy is not available. Can we take a number so that we can have him call you back?" So they would take the number, hang up the phone, no money spent, and then they would return the call to me and to the other RDs of that time. And it was probably the cheapest long-distance call that you could ever possibly have, because it was the beginning of Sprint. And believe me, they wanted to work their way into the long-distance phone call thing. We also had these little things to record the letters that we sent to the chapters that we worked with. There were devices of about this big that we had to hold while we were sometimes driving on the road and record letters for our brothers. I learned very quickly you do not do that while you are going through a very busy city like Atlanta, Georgia. I got off the interstate and it took me 3 hours to get back on. We were also told that please stay at the undergraduate chapters. If you can't stay there, stay with an alumna. If we can't stay there, you can stay at a hotel, but you can't go over $25. I was in Columbus, Georgia, hoping to start a new chapter there. I spent the night at the Nora Jenny Hotel for $24.95. I left the next morning because there was a murder that happened in that hotel that night. And I stayed with an alum. I will tell you, I met the best of men during my experience with our fraternity. People that believed in the best of what our undergraduate men could experience and what we could be as a whole for our national fraternity. Years later, following my time in the seminary and my ordination to the priesthood, I became chapter counselor to my own chapter of Oklahoma Beta, and as you heard before that, right after I got off the road and went to spend time at Oklahoma Alpha and learned that brotherhood bridges the gap when you are dealing with a chapter and a program that is bedlam to Oklahoma Beta and the University of Oklahoma. But it was a great experience. And I had great alumni who worked with me at my own chapter as well. When called to serve the National Fraternity as Grand Chaplain, it was Gary Griffith, as you heard, who gave me that call. And I joined my vocation to the priesthood to find my love for the Sigma Phi Epsilon, and have had the chance to meet new brothers with high ideals and renew friendships with those I hadn't seen for 2 or more years. I've also had the humbling responsibility and privilege to call by name and stand with the Grand Chapter as brothers young and old were remembered in their last roll call during the necrology. To those who I had the honor to know personally, and the countless others who in some way have been woven into the very fiber of my being, of our being, I give my deepest thanks for their legacy. Finally, I want to paraphrase a great lady from my own Catholic tradition, Dorothy Day. When she was given an award for her work at the Catholic Worker Movement, she said, "You honor me with this award, and I thank you, but don't think this gets any of you present off the hook. There is plenty to do for each one of us, working in our own hearts, changing our attitudes in our home chapters and the fraternity systems on our campus. The biggest mistake for any of us is to stand back, not get involved, and play it safe in this life. Let us all choose to make a difference. This is the nature of our brotherhood. This is what it means to be a SigEp. And I am proud to be here with you tonight. And I thank you for the opportunity to share this moment.